Tweet the link. I took my phone. I don't know where your phone is. I think I tossed it over here. Oh, here it is. After you're done broadcasting. We're live. Just in case you're curious, I don't want you to say anything indictable. What were you gonna say, or do you want to wait? Trash? Yeah, no, I'll take it out. That's all I was gonna say. I'm sorry. That's what tomorrow's for. Hey, folks, we are going to do the book review that we were going to do yesterday that I didn't get to because you know what I do? I think, for whatever reason, that a given topic that I write down in 3 or 4 lines or an idea that I have 4 or 5 little notes on, that's going to be 5 minutes worth of information. That's going to be nothing and we're going to be done. I'm taking my time on our lead in because the broadcast is doing that broadcast thing where it's, doing what I like to call the 1997 webcam experience. My friend Andre's a wizard with computers. He's linked up our party with a party that's happening right now in Sacramento. Look, you can see them. Is this thing on? Hey, you guys. Hello from Sacramento. What up? So hopefully it'll become good. I also have to do the thing where I tweet out the link to the thing. So give me a moment while I tweet out the link to the thing, this video, and then H.P. Lovecraft as my witness. I swear upon Cthulhu's Black Grave. Brandon Young, $1.99. Thank you so much for the donation. Helps to keep it on. I'm not reading your super chat donation. I thank you, but I am not going to be a party to your. It's going to pretend that you're doing art, okay? But it's worrying everybody. We really wish you would stop. Honestly, I love you. He's doing he's doing a thing. I think we're going to cover for our brother Brandon, and we're going to tell the authorities so he doesn't end up in a Guatemalan mental asylum that he's like an artist and he's doing like this prank thing, life is art, living theater bullshit. Okay, whatever. But thank you. And I do acknowledge you. So there you go. God bless you. But I will not be a party to your crime. Let me just share this link. If all y'all are on social media, go ahead and feel free to share this link too. Why not? The more the merrier. So let me just do this. Where am I going to do my Hoosh-toogs? Get rid of that. Boop. Oh, I can do it there. Hold on. Bam. No, come on. Just put the thing there, asshole. There you go. There you go. I'll do one of these over here, book review. Bam, bickety bam. Okay, here we go. So that is tweeted. We were going to do it last night, but like I said, hey, the Lloyd with a donation of $2. There you go. Thank you, the Lloyd, with the donation of California, $2. I'm teasing. I know it's something else. But God bless you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you for your donation and your help. It really does help. I threatened to do this book review 3 times now. And like I said, what keeps on happening is that I run these streams. These are streams. We've lost any sort of notion that I'm doing single issue or single topic or narrow cast videos, right? It is just becoming these live stream experiences, and I'm going with it. So it's more like a Johnny Carson show than it is like an episode of Three's Company, right? So we're not scripted and whatever, and sometimes things just keep on getting bumped. And I've been talking about doing the review of this book, H.P. Lovecraft and the Black Magical Tradition by John L. Stedman, published in 2015 from Wiser Books, which is a division of Red Wheel Wiser, a reputable publishing company in the realms of the mystical and the occult. Good book. We're going to get to it, and I'm going to try and get to it as soon as possible, so we don't do what we've done before, which is keep on losing the track. These subjects matters. If we were just to talk about H.P. Lovecraft, if we were to just talk about the Black magical tradition, either one of those things broken out, we could be here. People know me, and they know how I love to talk. And they know, I think, hopefully, they know these are subject matters upon which I am educated, upon which I do have a fair amount of background information, which I think will be relevant because, look, I'm not a professional book reviewer, and, when I read this book, I did not read it with the intent of doing a book review. I didn't have notes or take notes while reading it. So this is an amateur hour book review, but I think that this was a great book, worthy of being singled out and being talked about, and I think it will give us some. It's got a lot of meat on the bone. I think it will give us stuff to work with as far as generating worthwhile conversation. Like I said, if we were to just about H.P. Lovecraft, if we were to just talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the mythos, the Cthulhu's mythos, and its impact on society or culture in general, his impact as an author, we would be here for a while. Could be for a while. We could probably fill up multiple streams talking about, the mystical practices of Black magic, white magic, magical practices, Western mysticism is another thing that we talk about, and we do talk about, at length. So let me try and be as circumspect as possible and be as conservative as possible and not bite off more than I can chew, so we can do a decent job to try and do a decent enough job within a brief period of time to cover enough to let you guys know what's going on with this book. The author is John L. Stedman. I'll read about the author because I think it's noteworthy. How to do this? It's going to be very interesting. Let me just not overthink it. That'll be problematic. As I said, I don't work with a script, so sometimes I can get off script very easy. John L. Stedman, or Steedman, I don't know how he prefers it, is a scholar of H.P. Lovecraft and Western occultism and has been a magical practitioner for over 30 years, working with various covens and small groups of initiates. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Michigan State University, a Master of Arts degree from the University of Virginia, and a Master of Business Administration degree from the University of Wisconsin. It's a very interesting academic pedigree, I think. In addition to his academic credentials, John holds the following degrees in the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO as it's stylized, USA. Magician, 2nd degree, Man, 1st degree, and Minerval, 0 degree. Currently, he is employed as a professor of English languages and literature in Michigan. Why do I read about the author? Because I think it's interesting, because this is what this book is really is to know and understand what I think the value of this book is predicated upon. The author obviously, has a background in academia, but he also has a background and is a practicing occultist. And I think that it comes through in the book, because what ends up happening is that we don't have an outsider looking in. There have been a lot of, stuff about, written about H.P. Lovecraft from a strictly, literary analysis point of view. The subject, I think, has been touched upon by others, but like I said, maybe from people and there are people that practice black magic and they're into them as well. And let's and usually in treatises discussing or talking about the Necronomicon and its influence on culture, and literature and mysticism, what have you, or just popular culture, heavy metal murders, what have you. So it's a very good book, and I'll talk about what I think are its strengths and its weaknesses. And like I said, I didn't read this book with a mind to do a review, so I did not take notes. So all I'm really going to do, I might miss a lot, but what I'm going to do is basically use the table of contents to refresh my memory of all of the individual sections and talk a little bit what I thought was interesting or noteworthy. Mario Heat, OTO equals Anthropos. Anthropos is not admitted or a practitioner of the OTO, as best as I know. The OTO, and I think that this is worthy of mentioning, just so we have context. I mean, part of the reason I read about the author is so that you get context, that we talk about this. Uh, and that we can come to understand the stuff. Do me a favor, and if people can keep the swearing in the live chat to a minimum in the form of not doing it, it's greatly appreciated. Do you know what I mean? I think it's the best. Some of our videos get monetized, some of our videos get demonetized. We're trying to figure out. I know you people at home are thinking, well, you curse more than anyone else here, and you're doing it like in full view of the algorithm, so I don't know what you're complaining about, but do me a favor. So let me find myself. We'll go through it. So basically, and here's the thing, and talking about context, the Ordo Templi Orientis is a lodge, is a magical foundation or group that was formed by Aleister Crowley, okay? And I think it's important to know and understand that, because there's a lot of talk about, and there's a lot of theories. Well, I think if I go through the table of contents, and if I just do that to refresh my memory, the kind of the history will come out. I want to say this also in the form of context from the reader to you, the audience. I can tell you I remember purchasing this book, okay? There are times when I find myself, or I found myself in bookstores, and you end up, engaging or resisting engaging in just pure, retail therapy. You know what I mean? Buying something to buy something. There are times when I'm in used bookstores, or I'm in, new bookstores, and I'm looking through, maybe, I don't know, I guess, looking for something to read. When I saw this, there are occasional moments and experiences in the bookstore, or when I used to be able to find record stores to go to, which is becoming a very rare experience, but I still have this experience at record fairs when I still go, of holy shit, fucking A, jackpot, right? Where you're, after flipping through and going, I don't know, maybe, or nah, not really my thing, or kind of, you see something, you're like, holy gosh darn geez, that I want. For me, this was one of those things. H.P. Lovecraft, I've been a fan of since the simple days. Robin Eagle song with a donation of $3. Thank you for your assistance. Thank you for helping keep the lights on. God bless you. Goddess bless you. Cthulhu bless you, right? May Narla Hothetep nibble upon your toes this evening in your dreams, if you're into that sort of thing. I've been into since, first as a heavy metal and horror movie child, right? Knowing and understanding, my first impressions of his work were probably not the books. It was things like Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator, you know what I mean? Simple things. Then, as my, predilections towards the dark grew and manifested further in my late high school and early college, goth days, I, dove into the works of H.P. Lovecraft. I have many of my original, old, books that I got. And how did I forget? In my, Black Magic, I worship, my first teen altar to Satan, gift box days, the early days of heavy metal and mysticism as a child, as an adolescent. Reading the Necronomicon, was a de facto rite of passage, along with reading, whatchamacallit, the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, as well as, what was it, the one with the Satanic Rituals or whatever it was, this stuff, as well as, other stuff that we would pick up along the way. So, and then, moving on and growing on, my knowledge and my information and my experiences with the tradition of LaVeyan Satanism, my discovery and further discovery and analysis, and working with, the works of Aleister Crowley, and then later, chaos, magic, trysts with an interest in chaos magic and various left-hand path practices. H.P. Lovecraft comes up, and it's very interesting. I mean, the reason that this book was written was because, unlike any other literary figure, I dare say this, I might be mistaken. There's some chaos magic circles and rituals that talk about being able to invoke or evoke any entity of your desiring, including but not limited to Dr. Manhattan or Thor from the Marvel comic books. Believing that those possibilities to the side, and running the risk of making a statement that is not absolutely 100% true. Phil Blair asks, have you read Sinister Forces by Peter Levanda? I haven't read Sinister Forces by Peter Levanda, but I swear to Jesus, I won't go on a hunt for it. But there's a copy of it on one of these bookshelves as we speak. And Peter Levanda is interesting because if we talk about H.P. Lovecraft and the Black magical tradition, we'll get there when we go through the table of contents. What are we going to deal with? H.P. Lovecraft's works, was jumped upon by a mystic and a magician by the name of Kenneth Grant, who was a successor figure to Aleister Crowley himself. And I don't know, and it's not discovered or discussed in this book, whether it's what came first, the chicken or the egg, whether we're dealing with people working in parallel, or whether we're looking at people being influenced by other people. But simultaneously, when Kenneth Grant is in England working with the Cthulhu mythos and incorporating them into his magical practices, you have Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino in California, including in the satanic rituals, invocations to entities from the Cthulhu mythos. And where do you get and what do you have there? And so basically, those are two fonts. Because if we start discussing chaos magic and the work of Peter Carroll in the 80s, this is one of these things that we need to know. Things in these traditions are preceded by other things in these traditions, right? Before we have Peter Carroll and Phil Hine, right, and other popularizers. Before we have Grant Morrison, right, we have Kenneth Grant, Michael Aquino, the Temple of Set, and Anton LaVey and LaVeyan Satanism. Before we have those characters, we go back further. We've got Aleister Crowley. Before we have Aleister Crowley, we have the Golden Dawn. Before we have the Golden Dawn, we have Rosicrucians. We've got Freemasons. And before those motherfuckers, we have the friggin' Knights Templar. You know what I mean? It goes back. And Eliphas Levi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things that I'm educated about, and these are things that I know, and I predicate that, and we're getting through things in our meandering way, but I will do my best to stay on point. So my evaluation of this work, I don't think I can do unless I tell you that I came to this with pre-existing knowledge. Okay? I don't think that I can say that there was anything in this book that I discovered for the first time. What this book, my assessment of the book and the value of this book comes from, it basically covered all the bases. Generally, it's not a huge tome. So, things generally, are touched upon, explored a little, but kind of, move on. Someone in the live chat says H.P. Lovecraft's first victim of CIA weaponized cancer, and the term Lovecraftian, he knew too much. I'm going to refute that because at the time of H.P. Lovecraft's demise, the CIA didn't exist. The OSA might not have existed at the time that he died. So it is what it is. But, God bless you, and God bless your participation in the live chat. God bless you. We'll get there. So I don't know if you were, totally alien to this stuff, or didn't know anything about it, if you would get as much out of it as I did. As someone that kind of knew the lay of the land, I could assess this and say, if I were going to teach a class in H.P. Lovecraft and his influence on the occult, this definitely would be a book that you would put on the syllabus. But we'd have to walk through it together, and I think things would have to be, pulled apart a little. Also, I think John L. Stedman made one kind of, I don't think it's a grievous error, and I don't think that that he was totally off point, but I think we have his personal interests kind of come in and take over a portion of the book that I don't know if it really ties in, and it has to do with voodoo or voodoo, however you want to understand it. Well, I can't say that he committed some sort of crime and that it's completely tangential, and the book takes a left turn at Albuquerque inexplicably. I can say that even when you're in the midst of reading that portion of the book, it's conceded that H.P. Lovecraft didn't really know about voodoo, and that it just seems like John L. Stedman's, as an occultist, as a black magic practitioner, has probably a real interest in voodoo, and therefore it kind of naturally to him seemed to be appropriate and elucidating and educational. I don't know if I agree with him, and we'll get there, So, but like I said, so for me, reading this, when I first saw it, I said jackpot, because it hit all my buttons. I was very interested in the subject. So, knowing about this stuff and seeing it kind of, crystallized was definitely something that I knew would be very, 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 very interesting for me to read. Having read it, saying yet again for the 99th time that I'm already familiar with this material, it flowed for me very easy. It covered all the bases. Though, like I said, I think some of this stuff ends up getting short shrift, and many of these chapters I think could really be pulled out and explored as full books, and many of them have been. For example, the various faux Necronomicons, if you will. H.P. Lovecraft's literature, in addition to having a cast of amazing creatures and an overarching mythos, real mythos, very much like Tolkien. Also had very famous artifacts within it, one of which was this forbidden tome, this imaginary tome, the Necronomicon. Funny enough, we were talking about Peter Lavanda in the live chat. There was the famous, there have been various famous Necronomicons that have been found and translated over the ages, including the famous paperback Simon Necronomicon. But that's covered. I got to say, it is covered in here. And let me get to the table of contents. Let me go through, and we'll see. And then hopefully you guys can help me at the back end. If there's time left over, we can look at the live chat, and we can, if there's anything that I missed or anything that we, went over too quickly, we can get that. So when you read this book, what you do get is you get the history of. You get a great synopsis of H.P. Lovecraft, his literary impact, the other people that he was working with, and an exploration of the Cthulhu mythos and its impact on popular culture. You get that, and then in addition to that, you get a very, very thorough, if quick, history of, like I said, characters like Aleister Crowley, Kenneth Grant, Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino, Peter Carroll and the Chaos Magicians that came later on. There's the exploration of voodoo that I talked to you about, and so you get a lot there. Could I say that if you don't know about that stuff or you're not previously educated about that, it might just simply serve to be, pointing you in different directions, new information that you can further explore? or it might hold together cohesively for you like it did for me. But I don't want to make that assumption and let you know, therefore, for context, that I come to it, fairly educated about this stuff already. So, my mind and my history might be filling in, some of the blanks for me. But a good book, a really good book, and a really interesting one. Let me just do the table of contents, and that'll get us through this. Number one, the first chapter is the purposes and methodologies of black magic. This, great introductory section. If you're into the work of Joseph Campbell or Fraser's The Golden Bough, this is a great synopsis and a great kind of course on what magic is generally thought to be about, the various definitions of magic, from Aleister Crowley's famous, dictum, magic is making change happen in the world in accordance with one's will, to other explorations. And I think one of the theses of Mr. Stedman in this book is making the distinction between white magic and black magic. And the distinction that he generally makes is that white magic is for self-improvement, self-perfection, self-cleansing, and bringing oneself in touch with and in line with the divine. Whether it's characterized or used under the name of God or goddess or spirit of the universe or source, or whether it's crystallized under the concept, like Aleister Crowley, of conversation with the holy guardian angel. And a very interesting thesis of Mr. Stedman is the notion and putting forth the question and giving his rationales for asking the question whether or not Aleister Crowley's OTO and later a kind of triangle, whatever I don't know how people refer to it, organization were black magical, as we might be tempted to put him in that category because of his reputation of the wickedest man alive in the great B666. Mr. Stedman, who obviously has an education and knowledge about the subject, puts forward the concept and theory that no, really what the Ordo Templi Orientis and the work of Aleister Crowley in general was, despite his desire maybe to have it be something else. Oh, Shadow Magic points out AA is short for Astrum Argentum. Thank you so much. I knew that at some point in my history, and I totally fucking forgot it, brother. So thank you for being there for me, and thank you for giving me, putting forward that information. God bless you. God bless you. No pun intended. That whether or not, he basically characterized the work of Aleister Crowley as a white magical tradition, because this conversation with the holy guardian angel, Mr. Stedman kind of theorizes, is really, or his thesis is that really that holy guardian angel is, creator. It's like it's could be considered some sort of, or some aspect of God, or some interim step along this climbing the steps of the pyramid of knowledge, understanding, and pick a word, ascension, however you want to characterize it. That's a very interesting Shadow Magic. Thank you so much for the donation. God bless you. God bless you. It really does help keep the lights on. That's a very interesting theory and thesis. His exploration of what constitutes black magic, I think, was a little bit unsatisfactory to me, though, of course, I read it without taking notes, and on second reading, I may get a clearer understanding of it. Black magic, with the making of change happen in accordance with one's will, the desire to get one's will through not necessarily, perfection or paying attention to the rules, or assessing or understanding or coming in line with the rules of a higher order or higher power, but rather conversing with denizens of the beyond in order to get what you want. But there's a kind of a muddy distinction between, low and high black magic. But that again, saying that might be quibbling, because that's not the purpose of the book. He explores at length. Here we go. H.P. Lovecraft, prophet of the aeon of the great old ones. So when he puts forward, Stedman understands, the use of magic, as he explicitly states, and I think that this might, for me and many other people who grew up in the era of chaos magic practices, and a little bit more of the do what thou wilt, do whatever thou wilt, and understand things however you understand them. He really has a very specific and almost doctrinaire, to my ears, understanding of what ceremonial magic is for. And his understanding and his conceptualization, what he puts forward is that it is explicitly the conversation and conversing with other interdimensional entities in order to get them to help you achieve a goal, whether the goal is self-perfection, or whether the goal is getting the woman of your dreams, or getting that great job, or a lottery ticket, or vexing your enemy, whatever the case may be. He puts forward explicitly that it is magical practices are conversations and interactions and trainings in interactions with interdimensional entities. And that gets right to the heart of H.P. Lovecraft's influence on the occult, because here's what's so interesting about H.P. Lovecraft and his mythos. Unlike other fictional universes, right, intellectual properties and characters that exist, unlike any other, H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos has been fully ingrained and taken on by actual magical practitioners who converse and work with these. It's kind of a head scratcher, right? We know and understand that we can find Cthulhu, Azathoth, Nyarlathotep, and all the other unpronounceable names. We can find their origin in published works of fiction, right? Unlike Thor, who's incorporated into Marvel Universe, but we know and understand that Thor was brought about and came forward in our knowledge from actual cultures who venerated him as an actual god. We know that these works come from fiction. We'll get to it, and we'll get to it in the book, and it's explored. Kenneth Grant had this theory. It was kind of, and Stedman, I think, kind of takes it on and basically says no. He leaves it open as the question, but there are some people who say and suggest that the reason that these entities like Cthulhu and his ilk have been so easily incorporated into Black magical traditions is because H.P. Lovecraft was of the tradition. Like Aleister Crowley, like Eliphas Levi, like many others before him, like John Dee. He was a practitioner, and in so being was privy to special knowledge inherited both in the forms of great libraries or texts that he may have found from some elder relative or other mystic, or found or purchased, procured, but also because in his utilization of these practices and techniques, he would have contacted these other things who would have, like the scribes of the Bible are said to have been inspired and their hands moved by the hands of the Almighty Lord, might have actually dictated their own stories. So that these works of H.P. Lovecraft were not so much fiction as channeled information, a la the Urantia book or the Book of Mormon, etc. I know, I gotta keep going. No. Okay, so let me just keep going because we want to get there. We want to get there within a certain period of time. Okay, so Kenneth Grant, especially, and many others, there's also this kind of in the culture that has arisen over these questions. There are some people who make a lot based primarily upon the popularization of Kenneth Grant and the theories put forward by Kenneth Grant and Edward Kelly. I didn't mean to forget Edward Kelly, Phil Blair. Thank you so much for helping me out there. They put forward the notion that maybe that Aleister Crowley and H.P. Lovecraft existed at the same time, that they might have been speaking or conversing on the same plane. Stedman looks at that and basically kind of, I don't want to mischaracterize him, so I don't want to say it too strongly, but kind of puts forward the notion of no, that we know that H.P. Lovecraft was educated to a certain degree about Satanism, about black magic, about witches and folklore. And he goes to a very good length to explore what actual books, like Cotton Mather's, etc., that could be said to know and understand and come from and existed within H.P. Lovecraft's library. And we also know, and it's cited to various correspondences he had with other people, where he basically says kind of where some of the predecessors to his mythology come from. But yeah, maybe I think it's easier. But you could try. No. Okay. There you go. Find a nickel. So it is. Let me get there. So we go through, and we see that, because I mentioned Tolkien, and yeah, there's absolutely Wiccans and other kin who explore and use magical practices and who draw upon the work of Tolkien, but you can't really say, to the best of my knowledge, that a similar thing has happened to Tolkien as has happened to H.P. Lovecraft in his impact on actual magical practitioners. And it's an anomaly, and it makes us ask the question of why. Theories, were these characters just so compelling? Was this mythology just so compelling in and of itself that it inured, people that were into the black and into the mysticism to naturally see and be influenced by that? Is it because of the influence of popular culture? Look, when we get to practitioners like Aleister Crowley, or S.L. McGrath Mathers, or various other people of that time period, or like people before them, these people existed at a time when popular mass media did not exist. Aleister Crowley would have been alive to see the advent and the beginning influence of things like radio and radio dramas. By the time you get to guys like Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino, I mean, look, they were born in the ages of, Frankenstein and Dracula in the cinema, and, Weird Tales magazine. So is it just the fact that new practitioners, new workers in the black will be part and parcel of popular culture, draw naturally from popular culture, and just naturally be drawn by popular culture, including getting turned on to some of the very first popular horror writers of the time, like H.P. Lovecraft? Also, there is a cohesion to the majority of H.P. Lovecraft's material that makes it kind of a well that can be gone to. Like, I can't imagine what happened to H.P. Lovecraft happening to Stephen King's works. Because, while there's definitely been a cultural impact to writings like The Shining or The Stand, and there's stuff there that talks upon and touches upon, or that touches upon or touches upon the void, the other side, the black, the dark energy. I just can't. I don't imagine it happening.
Sorry, somebody asked what your shirt said.
My shirt says, "I am here. What are your other two wishes?" And it's got the genie from the Aladdin. Make of that what you will. Make of that what you will. So the purposes and methodologies of black magic. And then it goes H.P. Lovecraft, prophet of the Aeon of the great old ones, talking about the power of this stuff and exploring that. The next chapter goes on to the spurious Necronomicons. Again, the Necronomicon was a fictional work written about in the fictional works of H.P. Lovecraft and his contemporaries, because H.P. Lovecraft also, it's like, H.P. Lovecraft in many ways had the first intellectual property, using that modern parlance, that kind of commercial modern parlance, to be shared and to go viral. At the time that H.P. Lovecraft was writing, he allowed, and many people borrowed upon his style and his set and setting and cast of characters to work and to increase the amount of Cthulhu mythos inspired works that were available, thereby making it a world that many more people could go to, stay in, and remain. Think of things like goth or steampunk, right? These are places where a person can go, and once they've read, one work of fiction or experienced one, whether it be a book, a video game, or a movie, they can get more of that. And they can interact with other people who are similarly inspired and wired into those worlds, right? And it therefore becomes a place where one can stay and build up some sort of lifestyle. I dare say in the times of H.P. Lovecraft, the fact that many people working was meant that, though the brevity of the amount of work that he actually did meant that this world of the Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos was able to thrive, maintain, and keep on picking up, new people to the train. What's very interesting about the Necronomicon is that basically the question is like this: is that was this work that H.P. Lovecraft bringing forward, was it fiction, or was it some sort of revealed information about the actual nature of the cosmos and entities that lived within? And part and parcel of that has to do with the fact that people find or sell or hoax or produce, but then there's an audience for Necronomicons. And the various spurious Necronomicons, come forward, and they're all regarded and they're all dealt with in kind, and they're all fake to one degree or another. The many of the Necronomicons are dealt with one chapter under chapter 3. The Simon Schlangcraft Necronomicon, the Simon Necronomicon that most of us are familiar with, is dealt with in its own chapter, and I think for good reason, because it's got the most cultural impact. If you're interested in the Simon Necronomicon, not only is the Simon Necronomicon available, but around 2006, Simon, who I and many others believe is Peter Levanda, okay, a pen name of Peter Levanda, though he denies it, his name appearing on various contracts, you know what I mean? It's just incredible, but whatever. Wrote a book, or came out with a book called Dead Names, The History of the Necronomicon. That's a fascinating book within itself that I might very well come back to and review again. The great old ones are discussed in their own in chapter 5, the various mythological entities, their possible predecessors, or what they could be reminding us of, or what many people in the black magical tradition link them up with. Some of these names could be Sumerian. Some of these names are purely mythological. He discusses, I believe, in that chapter, what the various entities are kind of looked to be and worked with, and how they're worked with. Then he goes to Lovecraft and the Afro-Haitian voodoo cults, is chapter 6, and he spends a fair amount of time there. And it's an interesting chapter for me, because basically what Stedman does, an author is, and researchers concede, H.P. Lovecraft did not study voodoo. H.P. Lovecraft may have been in geographical areas where voodoo was practiced at one point or another, may have been exposed to it tangentially, but there's no real understanding that it heavily influenced his work, his myth making, or his knowledge and understanding of mystical practices. But it's talked about at length. And I think it might be a curiosity for Mr. Stedman why, despite the fact that H.P. Lovecraft didn't know about traditional Western mysticism, or didn't know about Santeria or voodoo or ancient surviving cultures wherein communication with entities from another dimension or the other side existed, that he got so much right. But then again, I think it just displays the fact that Stedman himself might be very interested in voodoo, or might be very much of the belief that a knowledge of voodoo and an understanding of ancient Afro and Afro-Cuban spiritual systems influence the Western magical tradition through Egypt or what have you, and therefore was a thread that needed to be put forth or an idea that needs to be explored. I will concede that voodoo is not a real interest of mine. It's not a specialty of mine. Not that I've got anything against it, but it might be, like I said, it might be the fact that this chapter may have left me dry, or I might not have connected with it or seen how it worked into the general narrative because strange land. I just didn't. I'm not familiar enough organically. It's not in my system. It's not, it hasn't been incorporated or digested or, whatever. Lovecraft and the Wiccan religion, interesting exploration. Again, like what you'll get out of this book if you read it is, I think you'll get a very good, decent introductory education into the history of Western mysticism and the history of many of these magical traditions that we see around us in the New Age. You will come away with a brief history of LaVeyan Satanism. You'll come away with a brief history of the Crowley tradition and Peter Grant's Typhonian Order and Chaos Magic Orders. Exhaustive? No. But a great introduction? Yes. And incorporated into that organically is a very good understanding and education in, the practices, the purposes and practices of mysticism and magic that I think is worthwhile and good. Lovecraft and the Church of Satan, again, a lot of this stuff. So, okay, let me do this. Okay. And then also the very interesting thing about this that's educational about this, and what I think it would be worthwhile to people who might be into, the Necronomicon work, and work with the Simon Necronomicon or, LaVeyan Satanism or Wicca is a real good historical analysis of the origin of these traditions. And in that, I think there's a lot of demystification. Okay. So, for example, when we get to the Wiccan religion, there's a real kind of debunking of the theory that what we see today in Wicca is necessarily authentically attached to witchcraft practices from old Europe, or tying them into older shamanic traditions. There's a real education and understanding of knowing that what we see as practiced as generally as practiced as Wicca around us in the West, et cetera, the history of that, the influence of Aleister Crowley upon that, the interest, the influence of other chancers and romancers who, kind of made up a lot of this stuff as they went along, borrowed a lot, and, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like I said, Freemasonry. Does it go back to Solomon? Not on your fucking life. There's no fucking way. It was invented by, people over time cobbling together and engaging in various practices. Influenced by real people that they met from around the world, absolutely. Influenced by a lot of exploration, absolutely. But a lot of the stuff was discovered and made up. Crowley wrote a lot of his insights and information. Lovecraft and the Typhonian, however you pronounce it, OTO. This, like I said, is one of the major fonts for H.P. Lovecraft's hardcore hot beef injection into Western mysticism and magical traditions can be laid at the feet of one individual only, and that's a Mr. Kenneth Grant. He was a secretary late in Aleister Crowley's career, basically took over Aleister Crowley's operation, and then went off and formed his own operation. You get a great history of Kenneth Grant. You get a great history of his written works. You get a great history of his life and his work. That, like I said, is it exhaustive? No. But it definitely will let you know kind of what you're dealing with here and where you can go back in for further research. And it's fascinating. Lovecraft and the Church of Satan is also his influence is interesting as well. Talking and examining specifically the incorporation of the Cthulhu mythos directly into the writing of Anton LaVey and his ghost writer friend Michael Aquino, especially in the satanic rituals that his works that are specifically directed. And there you get the incorporation. I'm left with the question of what came first, the chicken and the egg. Did Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino read the works of Kenneth Grant, where they published was Kenneth Grant's major works on the Cthulhu mythos, published before or after those things were incorporated. And then it goes on to Lovecraft and the chaos magic packs, the chaos magic tradition that, flourished, came about in the early 80s, came to its largest kind of influence in the mid to late 90s. I'm going to argue that chaos magic and magical practices in general in 2020 suffer from a lot of the things that I think many things suffer from in 2020, which is this kind of weird end of history kind of phenomena where it's hard to imagine PACS, PACTS. One way to describe it: black magic, chaos magic traditions, chaos magic practitioners, chaos magic covens. Pick your word. Pick your word. It's hard to imagine what comes next. We've talked about this, and I don't want to start, kicking a hornet's nest, because people know that when we start talking about nostalgia and things, and the 20-year nostalgia loop, and end of histories, and our current predicament in an oversaturated media environment, that I can get activated and start getting a little bit aggressive. So we don't want to necessarily go down there. But yeah, I mean, the Church of Satan is a little bit of a. I don't want to get started. We might. I think we'll have to leave what comes next to another separate episode. Let me do this. I've been with you for about 51 minutes. If we go to about a round hour, let me go ahead and turn my eyes to the live chat. There may be questions that you have that I can deal with in the time that we have. There may be stuff that is just too much. Jonaside says, I learned about chaos magic in 87. Yeah, where a lot of people learned about chaos magic is that chaos magic started with the work of a guy called Peter Carroll in the early 1980s. In England, and he was highly influential. And the influence of chaos magic really spread because many people in the industrial music underground became practitioners and kind of spread the word. Specifically, Genesis George of Throbbing Gristle, later of Psychic TV, and the Temple of Psychic Youth. And also his working partner, Peter Christopherson, Sleazy Christopherson, who went on to work with John Balance in the group, a musical ensemble known as Coil. That was absolutely, and both these individuals working hither and yon spread chaos magic as far as the eye could see. And then you started seeing people with 23 tattoos all over their place. And the influence on industrial culture cannot be underestimated. And that's certainly where I found out about it, where it got spread to me. Brandon Young asked a very good question. Any discussion of H.R. Geiger in the book? None. There's if he is mentioned, I don't know if there's an index. Let's see. Let's take a look. It's a good index. No. Make of that what you will. He doesn't even appear in the index. Unless I'm missing it, which I guess is possible. But no, I know how to spell and I know where to find G. So that's interesting. Mnemotechnic says Coil used the chaos sphere. Absolutely, did the Temple of Psychic Youth. I mean, the chaos sphere, the 8 points in eight different directions. Six's Design says Church of Satan on Twitter, 291,000 followers, following 0. Yes. Okay. This is a little bit crazy, but I'm going to talk about it. The guy that leads the current Black Pope of the Church of Satan is a guy called Peter H. Gilmore. He's no Anton LaVey. He really isn't, and he wasn't even Anton LaVey's first choice to lead the Church of Satan once Anton LaVey knew that his days on planet Earth were numbered. Famously, it's been my understanding, and it's not been refuted, and I've seen enough corroborating sources to say his handpicked successor was an individual known as Boyd Rice, who leads a musical group called Non. Boyd Rice is an Anton LaVey type character, charismatic, infuriating, media savvy. Just, I don't agree with many of his politics, but a lion of a man, just a huge personality. He turned it down, right? Kind of on the premise of basically a wink and a nod to Anton LaVey himself to basically say, Anton, you know very well that if you had your druthers, you wouldn't have fucking formed this organization of fucking sycophants and losers hanging on to your every word, would you? Right? There's a little bit of gnosis there. So Peter H. Gilmore was an officiant, worker in the Church of Satan organization who ended up inheriting the reins. He's a fucking twink. I don't like him. I don't like him personally. I think he's got the personality of a dead fish. He's not a stunningly attractive individual. He's not striking in as far as his image is concerned. And when we talk about the Church of Satan, I'm allowed to go to that wheelhouse. I'm allowed to be superficial when we talk about the Church of Satan because the image, the use of imagery, the proper use of imagery is very important, by the works of Anton LaVey. So using their own playbook and their own standards, Peter Gilmore is a twink. I don't like him. I don't like his writing. I don't like his music. And if you want to know the ugly truth, Twitter is really the last stand of the Church of Satan. If you want to know where the Church of Satan is most active, it's on Twitter. And why is the Church of Satan big on Twitter? Kids and social media. Everyone goes through there's an old saying, every dude in America and in England and wherever in the Western world goes through a Led Zeppelin phase. Every heavy metal kid, boy and girl, right? Whether you're me or Marilyn Manson, or you're listening to death metal, black metal, or techno or industrial, whatever, all the kids go through a Church of Satan phase, right? It's the appeal of the Satanic Bible is very similar to the appeal of Ayn Rand's writing, objectivism. In fact, Anton LaVey talks explicitly about basically he took Ayn Rand's objectivism and just put it in fancy dress, dressed it in mysticism. God bless him. If you want to know what the Church of Satan is primarily interested in doing on Twitter, it's refuting the notion that the Temple of Satan is a legitimate satanic organization. Meanwhile, the guys behind Temple of Satan, whatever their interest and whatever their legitimacy as satanic practitioners or people is concerned, they do shit. They get laws changed. They're the ones who put the statue of Baphomet next to the Ten Commandments in a certain southern town. Who's the guy behind the look up? If you look up Temple of Satan, they got Lucian Greaves. Peter H. Gilmore hates Lucian Greaves because Lucian Greaves gets shit done. He gets his name in the papers. He gets his name in the media. He gets involved in debates. He makes influences and changes laws. He got the Temple of Satan recognized, I believe, as a tax-exempt organization where the Church of Satan never did. Anton LaVey, not Temple of Set, the Temple of Satan. It's a different organization. And it just is what it is. And so it's constantly, the Church of Satan, we're the Church of Satan, we're the only Church of Satan, we're the first satanic organization, which is, none of that's true. They weren't the first organized satanic organization. To do so is to engage in an ultra-literal reading of the words. it is what it is. I have disagreements with the Church of Satan. I don't debate with members of the Church of Satan on Twitter because debating with people and arguing with people on Twitter is a lost cause. But if you think that I'm prone to engaging in get off my lawn, you stinking kids behavior, look at the Church of Satan on Twitter. All it is, 24 hours a fucking day, is look at these religious yahoos in the South. Aren't they stupid? Number two, Lucian Greaves and the Temple of Set is not a legitimate satanic organization. They're hangers on and chancers and romancers and exploiters. And we're the only legitimate Church of Satan. We are the Church of Satan, trademark going on. And the Church of Satan is kind of, as an organization, they sell that look, the influence of the Satanic Bible cannot be underestimated. As long as Feral House Press stays in print, many of the works of Anton LaVey are published and are out there, and kids will find them and they'll read them along with their Slayer and Metallica and Venom CDs, and the world will just keep on pumping on. Okay? And keep on going. But they're going to say that the Church of Satan no longer has active grottos because they realize that they need to go beyond that. No, it's because no one wants to join. No one wants to pay money to join the Church of Satan, for the most part. Listen, I'm going to tell you a story, and I've told it before, and I'll tell it again. Okay? And then I got to go.
Yes.
Okay. Last story of the night in the Church of Satan. I have had this experience with every single other person that I ever met that was interested in the works of Anton LaVey. Okay? Anton LaVey changed my life. His influence, though I put him in a certain category now, having grown, having experienced more things, having educated myself about other things, I will never detract or deny the influence that he's had upon my thinking, upon my life, and fucking the Church of Satan, fucking cool. Cool. Did you ever pay the $100 or whatever to join and become an official member? No. Everyone I ever respected, except with the exception of Reamsey, always said no. Why? Because we thought of it as some sort of test, right? You're going to pay to get a little membership badge. If you pay to get some sort of membership badge to some satanic organization, you're by definition not a true LaVeyan Satanist, because a true LaVeyan Satanist, if you read the works of Anton LaVey and really respected yourself, you would say, I already read your fucking book. I'm not going to spend $100 to fucking, be a plebeian to you. You know who actually joined the Church of Satan? Here's the people that joined the Church of Satan. I joined the Church of Satan because Anton LaVey taught us that we should all be an individual. And Anton LaVey was into 1940s music, zoot suit, shaving his head, having a crazy little goatee, wearing a reverend's, collar, and being all antisocial. So I'm into 1940s music, wearing a zoot suit, 1940s influence art. My girlfriend is either really fat, really skinny, always has Betty Page bangs, black hair, red hair, lesbian, whatever, fishnet stockings and stilettos. It's for a group of individuals, all the members of the Church of Satan look exactly the fucking same. Smart enough to care enough to be an individual, not smart enough to know that just because you leave mainstream society doesn't mean you're not a fucking joiner. You go to any art show, anything advertised as an adjunct to the Church of Satan, you will see what I mean. For a group of individuals, it's motherfucking hysterical how they all look exactly the same. And the other thing that I'll tell you about them, just like the nude beach, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I'm not saying there's no sexy people involved with the Church of Satan. I'm not saying that there's no attractive people at the Church of Satan. But you ever been to a nude beach, a real nude beach? You think going to the nude beach means you're going to see Cindy Crawford and fucking Johnny Depp, right? With their fucking schlongs and their titties out, and it's going to be, woo! I mean, I don't look like much, but I'll go on the nude beach with my powder white ass to see some of that. And you go there and it's other fucking, it's unattractive people at the nude beach, at the swingers club, and at the Church of Satan. It's a generalization. It's a generalization, but it's true. It's true. Jane Mansfield notwithstanding, God bless him. To a man, to a woman, and to a transgender in between, I am on the Church of Satan's membership rosters league, right? You'll never see me with a member of the Church of Satan and say, he, she, they are out of his league. This is what you get with the Church of Satan. Generalization. Don't show me a picture of a sexy Twitter model associated with the Church of Satan because she's just there for the fucking simps, despite the fact that they're supposed to be simp proof, right? I got to go, folks. I love you. We took a diversion at the end. It is what it is. I'm glad I made some more enemies in the Church of Satan. God bless them. They suck. Whatever. Reamsey's cool. I love you. 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 I love you all. I really do. Stephen Durant says, any chance of discussing the Course of Miracles sometimes? Probably, but we are really doing a lot of work with the Urantia Book Club over at Kelly Farmer's Explaining Esoterica channel. Come over there. We might do Course of Miracles next because it is a revealed text of Jesus, so we seem to be on that kind of kick. But the Urantia book is huge, so it's going to take us a long time before we get there. I love you. I love you. I love you. Six's Design gets MVP. I saw you as I was talking about things or as topics came up in the live chat. You always do a great job. Humans work, as they say, putting in the links and helping move those discussions forward and giving those extra resources to the people. You also remind us to say, make sure to subscribe and smash the like button on the way out. And like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. There's a reason why every YouTube content creator says it to you over and over and over and over again. And why is that? Because it helps. It helps. You can also take a look in the link down below, in the description box below. I've got a Patreon. Wink, wink, nod, nod, say no more. I'll suck your dick, man. Or eat your ass, or go down on you. It's, metaphorically. I'm not offering sexual services through YouTube, right? This is not a money laundering and or doomed to fail prostitution operation. Yet. I gotta go. I love you. I love you. I love you. If no one told you they loved you today, somebody just did. That's somebody, CW Chanter and
Kelly Farmer.
Make of that what you will. Subscribe to Explaining Esoterica. Take a look down below in the description box. I've got other channels as well that I do nothing with, but you might as well. You never know. You might get lucky. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Let's wait for this thing to end.